Do you know that what we call today the Middle East was once considered part of Africa? Many people don't realize this, but history shows us that the connection between North Africa and what we now label as the Middle East was deliberately severed during colonial times. Let's start with geography. If you look at a map before the 19th century, there was no man-made barrier between Egypt and the rest of Africa. The land stretched seamlessly, and cultures flowed across the Nile Valley into the Red Sea, Arabia, and beyond. Africa and Asia were linked not just by trade, but by family ties, spiritual exchanges, and migration. Then came the Suez Canal. Built by the French and completed in 1869 and later controlled by the British, this canal physically sliced through the Isthmus of Suez in Egypt. Overnight, it created an artificial water boundary, a man-made border that symbolically and politically detached Egypt and the surrounding lands from Africa, reorienting them toward Europe and Asia. But it wasn't just geography that was reshaped. Words themselves became weapons. The term Middle East did not exist in ancient maps, nor in African traditions. It was coined by the British in the early 20th century, during the height of colonialism. Why? Because language is power. By inventing the idea of a Middle East, Britain could reframe the region, not as Africa, not as Asia, but as a vague, separate zone whose destiny was under European control. Think about it. Africa was already painted by colonial powers as a dark continent, meeting conquest and partition. Asia was being carved up too, but this land in between, the British branded it the Middle East, a term that centers Europe, because the East is only middle when measured from London. This separation was not innocent. It had consequences. By naming and dividing, colonial powers split up cultures that had long been connected. Egypt, Sudan, and the Horn of Africa were historically tied to the Arabian Peninsula. Trade, religion, and migration had no strict borders. But under colonial rule, these ties were weakened, and identities were relabeled. And here's the irony. Before the British invented Middle East, many scholars and cartographers still placed Egypt, Palestine, and the Levant under North Africa. That was the understanding, a continuous African space reaching into the Red Sea and beyond. It was colonial powers who rewrote the map to serve their empire. Why does this matter today? Because the way we think about regions shapes politics, identity, and even how people see themselves. Calling North Africa MENA, Middle East and North Africa, still separates Africans from Africans. It's part of the lingering colonial mindset,